Hello my dear friends, and welcome back to Turkish Spotlight Secrets. I'm thrilled you're here with me today, because what we're about to unpack feels like opening a velvet-lined box hidden at the back of a drawer, the kind of treasure you only see when someone finally says, "Alright, I'm ready." You saw the title, so you already know where we're headed. Hazal Kaya has spoken about secret love messages from Çağatay Ulusoy, and the way she told it has left the entire fandom buzzing. If you thought you knew their story, wait until you hear how she framed the quiet words that kept them close when the lights were brightest and the world wouldn't stop asking questions. This is not about scandal. It's about the kind of intimacy that hides in plain sight and slips into your heart before you realize you've been holding your breath. For years, the bond between Hazal Kaya and Çağatay Ulusoy has lived in that electric space between nostalgia and speculation. They were the pair that lit up a generation, turning everyday scenes into memories fans still hold on to. There were whispers, theories, endless edits, and late-night threads trying to decode glances and pauses. But today, we're not chasing shadows. Today, we're stepping into the calm clarity of Hazal's own words shared in a recent sit-down that spread across the industry like perfume. You know it's there even when it disappears into the air. She didn't posture or paint a fantasy. She simply spoke as if remembering a melody she once hummed quietly to herself, and the effect was devastating in the softest possible way. She described how, during the height of their careers, when their schedules ran long and the camera turned even longer, what tethered them wasn't a parade of public gestures. It was messages. Not generic good mornings, not showy confessions, but thoughtful lines that felt tailored to her heartbeat. She laughed softly as she recalled how he would notice ridiculous little details and turn them into reassurance, how he'd send a sentence that sounded like an arm around her shoulders. There were nights of brutal call times and heavy scenes, the sort that leave you wrung out, and on those nights his words would arrive like a lantern lit from a distance, guiding her back to herself. She remembered those moments clearly. Stepping into a dressing room too bright and too quiet, opening her phone, and finding a note that anchored her. It wasn't about praising her like a headline would. It was about seeing her, the way she concentrated between takes, the way she fought to get a scene right even when no one else could see why it mattered. He would write things that pushed the fog away. That her focus was a map, that her stubborn courage lit routes he never thought could be bright, that the craft she loved so fiercely was loving her back more than she realized. He wasn't just cheering. He was bearing witness, and anyone who's ever needed one person to say "I see you" knows how that lands. She didn't give salacious details. That's not her style. But she let a few phrases float through the conversation, carefully, as if releasing them back to the moment from which they came. He'd tell her she didn't need the world to clap, because she already knew the truth of her own work. He'd say that on set, when the frame tightened and the tension built, he could feel her steadiness like a hand on his back. He'd tease her when she got grumpy about a missed cue, then follow it with a line that made her laugh right through the stress. On days when she doubted herself, he would send a quiet reminder that self-doubt lies, that she has a center no storm can touch, that he believed in her so much it made him braver too. And every time, the message landed like a deep breath after running too far without one. But it wasn't all grit and pep talks. There was romance tucked into the margins, small and devastating and tender. She said he had a talent for describing absence as if it were an art form. He'd mention a city street that felt louder without her voice, a mirror that held a different shade of light when she wasn't in the room. He'd confess that waiting at a red light made him think of the way she furrowed her brow when she read scripts, that a random café song felt like she'd left part of a summer evening in it. This wasn't performative poetry. It was observation turned into affection, memory shaped into promise. He wasn't trying to impress the world. He was trying to hold her close without needing to touch her hand. What struck everyone listening was her insistence on authenticity. She said there was no pretense, no strategizing, no playing to the balcony. The messages arrived like a habit, like breathing, and in that steadiness she found a sense of safety. They built a private language in the small space between takes and travel, in the AM hours when even the city grew tired. And somewhere in those unspectacular minutes, something undeniable took root. She called the messages a living diary, a thread that stitched together scattered days into something that felt whole. And though time moved and careers shifted and paths unfolded in the complicated, beautiful ways life demands, the intimacy of those words never soured in her memory. It stayed warm. It stayed kind. When the conversation turned to pressure, the kind that coils around public figures like invisible wire, she didn't flinch. There are expectations, she said, that grow so loud they drown out your own voice. There are nights when the applause feels like a challenge and the silence afterward feels like a cliff. On those nights, his messages would arrive, not to rescue her but to remind her that she wasn't alone on the ledge. He'd steady the ground beneath her by naming what was real, the work, the effort, the stubborn joy of trying. He didn't shove her forward. He stood beside her, and from that place he'd say, in a dozen different ways, that bravery is a rhythm you relearn every day. A heartbeat found, lost, and found again. And yes, she acknowledged the question everyone wanted to ask but didn't dare phrase directly. Where does that love go when the script changes? She didn't dramatize. She didn't erase. She simply said that some stories don't end, they find a quieter chapter. What remains is respect, a tenderness that refuses to turn into something sharp, a gratitude for a time that was exactly what it needed to be. She carries the memory of those messages the way a musician carries a song that changed them, not to perform on command, but to keep safe, because it once helped them remember who they were. A secret you share with yourself on days when the weather turns. If you're hearing all of this and thinking it sounds like a fairy tale, look closer. It's more ordinary than that, and that's why it feels true. Two people who knew the strange rules of living under a lens decided to build something no lens could capture. They didn't announce it. They tended it. And as Hazal spoke, you could feel how much that choice taught her. She reminded everyone listening that you don't have to buy roses by the dozen to say what matters. Sometimes the grand gesture is a sentence sent at exactly the right moment. Sometimes the most romantic thing you can do is pay attention and then tell the truth about what you see. That's not old-fashioned. That's forever. So here we are, at the end of a revelation that never tried to be explosive and somehow still shook the room. Hazal Kaya opened a window, and for a moment we saw the way words can hold a person together. We saw the way Kagate Yolasoy used language like a lighthouse, how gentleness can be fierce, how a message can be the smallest and bravest form of love. Tell me, what do you think? Did this surprise you? Do you believe in the power of a sentence sent at the right time? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because I read them all, and our conversations are the pulse of this place. If this story moved you, hit like, share it with someone who needs a little softness today, and make sure you're subscribed to Turkish Spotlight Secrets with notifications on. We're just getting started, and there are more hearts to decode, more mysteries to unravel, more moments that prove the real show begins when the cameras stop. Thank you for being here, for your time, for your trust. Until the next story, stay kind to your own heart, and listen for the messages that find you when the world goes quiet.